When I picked up the phone to ask my son Max about his wedding date, I never expected the answer I received. Before Max could say anything, my daughter-in-law Lena looked straight into my eyes, smiled coldly, and said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those words felt like ice water poured over me. Special people. For 3 years, I had been paying their rent every month, $500 without fail. I had bought every piece of furniture in their house, filled their refrigerator when they had nothing, and even given them money for their personal expenses. And yet, I was not a special person. I stood frozen in my own living room, holding the phone that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My son avoided my eyes while Lena made herself comfortable on the sofa I had bought for them. In my closet hung the pale pink dress I had chosen for her wedding, with matching shoes. I had spent $200 on it, excited to look nice in Max's wedding photos I would never appear in. I had saved $1,000 as a wedding gift. I had cleaned my entire house, imagining that they might stop by to celebrate after the ceremony. All those plans, all that love, collapsed in a single moment with 4 poisoned words. Only special people. Finally, Max looked at me and said in a stiff, rehearsed voice, "Mom, it was just a small, intimate thing. Only us and the witnesses." But I already knew he was lying. I had seen the photos on social media. Lena's parents were there, smiling proudly. Her siblings raised their glasses in a toast. I even saw the beautiful white dress she wore, the one partly paid for with the $800 I had given her just a month earlier. And I saw what I was never supposed to see, that in their most important moment, I was invisible. 1 week later, my phone rang. I saw Lena's name on the screen. Her voice, usually so confident, now sounded desperate and shaky. "Renate, the rent is overdue. The landlord is threatening to evict us. You forgot to make the transfer." I sat silently for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. I remembered all the times I had rushed to the bank to pay their rent, the times I had cancelled my own plans, eaten beans and rice, just to make sure they had food and shelter. And now, after excluding me from the most important day of my son's life, Lena was calling me as if nothing had happened. Finally, I spoke. My voice was calm, steadier than I expected. "Lena," I said, "didn't I warn you? I only help special people." The silence on the other end of the line was so deep that I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one trembling. She was. "Renate, I don't understand," she stammered. "We were always special to you. You're like a second mum to me." But I knew better. Lies. All lies. Sweet words she only used when she needed something. The same voice she had used to ask me for money for her wedding dress, for the honeymoon, for the rings things I helped pay for, even though I was never invited to see them exchanged. For years, I had walked on eggshells, always hoping for a little affection from my son and his wife. I had been the perfect mother, the silent provider, the one who never complained. But those 4 words, "only special people," had awakened something inside me. Something strong, something that had been asleep for far too long. That night, after hanging up the phone, I sat on my bed and cried. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, of years of silent humiliation. I cried for all the times I had been treated as invisible. I cried for all the love I had given that was never returned. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. The same tired eyes, the same wrinkles. But now there was something new in my face. A hardness, a determination. For the first time in years, I felt clear. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat at the table. This table had witnessed so much: my secret tears, my careful savings, my plans to help Max and Lena. But today, it would witness something new, the truth. I pulled out my checkbook and bank statements. I began adding everything I had spent on them. Rent, $500 each month for 36 months, $18,000. Food and supplies, about $200 per month, $7,200 birthday, Christmas, and anniversary gifts, $3,000 Lena's medical emergencies, $800 car loan, never repaid, $2 $500 air conditioner repair, $600 living room furniture, $1,200 the total, $3,340,033,400 of my retirement, my savings, my late husband's inheritance money, meant for my peace in old age. And what did I receive in return? Exclusion, disrespect, lies. As I looked at the final number, something inside me shifted. I realized I had not been helping them out of love. I had been buying a place in their lives. I had confused money with love, and I was done. From that day forward, Not a single dollar more would leave my pocket for them. For the first time in years, my money and my life belonged to me. Later that week, I came home and froze. 3 cars were parked in front of my house. Through the window, I could see movement inside. They had keys. I had trusted them. When I opened the door, I found Max sitting on my sofa, his head in his hands. Lena was pacing like a restless animal, and a man I didn't recognize, older, in a grey suit, was going through papers on my dining table. My private papers. What is happening here? I asked, my voice louder than expected. All 3 looked at me as if I were the intruder in my own home. Renate, thank God you're here, Lena said quickly. This is Mr. Fisher, a family lawyer. We're worried about your situation. My situation? I asked coldly. I'm perfectly fine. Max lifted his head. His eyes were filled with panic. Mom, the bank told us you cancelled all the transfers and blocked our access. We don't understand why. We think maybe you need help. Mr. Fisher stepped forward with a fake, polite smile. Mrs. Richter, I am here because your children are concerned. They think you may not be capable of handling your finances. They believe you need someone to manage things for you. I picked up my papers from the table and held them close. These are my private documents. You have no right to touch them. Mum, Max said, in a condescending tone. You've been acting strangely, cutting us off suddenly, ignoring our call. Maybe loneliness is confusing you. Confusion, I repeated, my voice sharp. I have never been clearer in my life. You are the ones confused if you think my money belongs to you. Mr. Fisher calmly slid a folder onto the table. This is a power of attorney. If you sign, Max and Lena can manage your finances, just until you feel better. Without even opening it, I threw the folder into the trash. The only thing happening here is that all 3 of you are leaving my house. Now, Lena's fake tears appeared. You can't do this, Renate. We were counting on you. We made plans with your support. Plans with my money, I answered. Not with my love. Not with my presence. Only my money. And that is over. Max stood up angrily. Mom, this is going to end badly for you. You'll end up alone. I looked him in the eyes. I am already alone, Max. The difference is, now it is by choice, not by your neglect. I pointed to the door, and for the first time in years, they obeyed. The next morning, I walked into the office of Mr. Weber, an attorney I had met years ago when I managed my late husband's will. Unlike the stranger Max and Lena had brought, this man had an honest reputation. After listening carefully, Mr. Weber leaned back and said, Mrs. Rick, what your children tried to do is called elder financial abuse. It is sadly very common, and it is also a crime. Entering your home without permission, reviewing your private papers, and pressuring you to sign a power of attorney are all serious violations. His words both calmed and scared me. They calmed me because they proved I wasn't crazy. This was real abuse. They scared me because I realized how far Max and Lena were willing to go. We need to document everything, Mr. Weber continued. Every transfer, every gift, every emergency payment. We'll also update your will to protect your assets. That way they can't manipulate you again. For 3 hours, we reviewed my financial records. Mr. Weber shook his head when he saw the total, $33,400 in just 3 years. With this money, you could have traveled the world, he said. Instead, you financed 2 adults who excluded you from their wedding. That day, I made a decision. I cancelled every automatic transfer. I changed my locks. I ordered a full security system with cameras. I opened a new bank account at a different branch, one Max and Lena could never touch. When I got home, my phone kept ringing, first Max, then Lena, then unknown numbers. I turned it off completely. The next day, the hardware store owner, Mr. Summer, helped me choose the strongest locks. His son, Ethan, who installs security systems, offered to set up cameras right away. For years, I had bought tools and supplies to fix Max and Lena's apartment. But this time, it felt different. This is for my own house, I told him firmly. As Ethan explained how the cameras would work, I realized something ironic. I was protecting myself not from strangers, but from my own family. And, strangely, instead of hurting, that truth gave me peace. The very next day, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Renate, it's Lena, came the voice on the other end. Please don't hang up. Let's talk like civilized adults. Speak, I said coldly. Listen, I know you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. Max and I want to make it up to you. How about we have a special dinner, just us? We can do it at your house, cook together like old times. We miss you." Her words sounded sweet, but underneath I heard manipulation. I almost laughed at the performance. "Lena," I interrupted, "how much rent do you owe?" There was a long silence. I had hit the real reason for her call. "Well, it's 2 months. About $1,000 total," she admitted nervously. "But Renate, I'm not just calling for money. We really miss you." "Do you miss me?" I asked. "Or do you miss my money?" Another silence. Then, with surprising honesty, she whispered, "Both." Her answer cut deep, but it also revealed the truth. "If I'm so important," I said firmly, "why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Why don't I ever get a call, unless it's about money? When was the last time you called just to ask how I was?" There was no answer. We both knew the truth. "Never. Lena," I said one last time, "for 3 years you treated me like an ATM with feelings. You used me, ignored me, humiliated me. And now that the money is gone, suddenly you love me. I'm done. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't special enough. Now I'm making mine." Before she could respond, I hung up. And this time, I turned off the phone completely. It was my day of freedom, and I wasn't going to waste another second on their lies. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked into my favorite beauty salon, Mrs. Rick. My stylist Cynthia exclaimed in surprise, "I thought you had forgotten us." I smiled sadly. "I didn't forget you, Cynthia. I just forgot that I deserved to take care of myself." For years, every time I had set aside a little money for myself, something urgent came up for Max and Lena. A salon appointment cancelled, a dress returned, a small joy postponed. My comfort had always been less important than their endless emergencies, but not today. I sat in the chair and let Cynthia do everything: haircut, new color, manicure, pedicure. As she worked, she chatted about her children, her dreams, her daily life. It was refreshing to hear a conversation that wasn't about bills, rent, or problems I had to solve. When Cynthia finished, she looked at me with a smile. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Richter. But more than that, you look free. Did something good happen?" "Yes, Cynthia," I said softly. "I finally learned how to say no. For the first time in years, I spent money without guilt. Not on rent, not on groceries, for someone else. Not on furniture I would never use on me." Walking out of the salon, I felt lighter. My hair shined, my hands looked elegant, and my heart felt strong. It wasn't just about the makeover. It was about reclaiming the woman I had buried under years of sacrifice. That evening, as I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see wrinkles and tired eyes. I saw a woman reborn, someone who could finally enjoy her own life. The next afternoon, as I returned home from my walk, I noticed a car parked outside my house. On the steps of my porch sat an older woman holding a coffee mug. "Mrs. Rick?" she asked gently when I approached. "Yes, that's me," I replied cautiously. "I'm Eleanor Brooks. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but we've never really talked. Yesterday I heard raised voices in your house, and I was worried. Are you all right?" Her genuine concern touched me deeply. Here was a woman I barely knew, showing more care for me than my own son had in years. "Please, come in," I said warmly. "I'll make us some coffee, and I'll tell you a story you probably won't believe." We sat at my kitchen table. As the coffee brewed, I told her everything from being excluded from the wedding, to paying $33,400 over 3 years, to the lawyer who tried to declare me incompetent. Eleanor listened quietly, nodding, her eyes full of empathy. When I finished, she placed her hand over mine. "Mrs. Richter," she said softly, "you did the right thing. I went through something similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I thought helping her with money was love, but I learned the hard way that love doesn't come with a price tag." "What happened?" I asked. "At first, it was terrible," she admitted. "My daughter threatened me, tried to make me feel guilty, but after 6 months of living on her own, she called to apologize. Now, we have a real relationship, based on love, not money." Her words gave me hope. Maybe, one day, Max would realize the same, or maybe he wouldn't. Either way, it was no longer my responsibility to buy his affection. That evening, for the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. I had a friend, I had support, and I had peace. A few days later, I decided to do something I had avoided for a long time. I went to visit my husband Robert's grave. For years, I always found excuses. There was always a bill to pay, an emergency for Max and Lena, or some other reason why the taxi fare or the flowers had to be used for them instead. My grief had been postponed, just like my life. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. When I reached Robert's grave, I felt both guilt and relief. The headstone looked a little neglected, and I knew it was because I hadn't been there in months. I knelt down, cleaned the stone, and placed fresh flowers. Then I sat on the grass and began to talk, just as if he were sitting next to me. "Robert, my love," I whispered, "I think I lost myself after you left. I put everything into Max. I wanted to be both mother and father to him. I thought if I gave him everything, he wouldn't feel your absence. But maybe I went too far. Maybe I tried to buy his love, instead of trusting that it was already there." The wind blew softly, as if he were listening. "Our son, he has become someone I don't recognize. Or maybe he was always this way, and I didn't want to see it. His wife, well, you'd know what I mean. The money you left for me, money meant for peace and comfort, I spent on them. But not anymore. I have finally learned. Robert, I have finally opened my eyes." I stayed there for almost an hour, just sitting in the quiet, feeling closer to him than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't in a rush to get home and solve someone else's problems. I allowed myself to grieve, to breathe, to simply be. When I finally stood up to leave, I felt lighter. I felt forgiven, and I felt ready for the next chapter of my life. When I drove back home from Robert's grave, I froze. 3 cars were parked in front of my house again. Through my new cameras, I saw Max, Lena, and 2 strangers pacing outside, pointing toward my door. My heart raced. This time, I didn't even get out of the car. Instead, I called Mr. Weber, my lawyer. "Mr. Weber, they're here again," I said quickly. "They've brought more people. What should I do?" "Stay in your car," he replied firmly. "Don't open the door. I'll be there right away." I also called the police. After our last talk, I have already requested a temporary restraining order. Within minutes, 2 police cars and Mr. Weber arrived. I watched from my car as officers spoke with Max and Lena. Max waved his hands angrily. Lena cried dramatically. The strangers looked uncomfortable. One officer came over to me. "Ma'am, you can get out safely now. They will leave immediately." I stepped out of the car. Max shouted across the street, "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." I looked at him calmly. Family doesn't break into my home. Family doesn't bring lawyers to steal my money. Family doesn't treat their mother like an ATM. You'd stopped being family the moment you treated me like a bank. Lena screamed through her tears. "You can't do this. You owe us. We made plans with your support. We have bills. You co-signed for things." Mr. Weber stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Any future communication will go through my office. And let me warn you, if you continue making threats, you will face charges. My client has detailed documentation of every dollar she gave you. She owes you nothing." Max glared at me with pure anger. "This will end badly for you, Mom. You'll be all alone." I shook my head slowly. "No, Max. I was already alone. The difference now is it's my choice." The officers ordered them to leave. As their cars disappeared down the street, I stood taller than I had in years. For the first time in this long nightmare, I felt safe. A few days later, my doorbell rang. On the camera, I saw a young, well-dressed woman holding a folder. She smiled politely when I opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Richter. My name is Mrs. Schmidt. I'm a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We received reports that you may be at risk, so I need to do a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Reports? I knew immediately who had made them. "Can I see your ID?" I asked firmly. She showed it to me. It looked real. "May I come in?" she asked. I allowed her inside, knowing that refusing might make things worse. She sat on my sofa and opened her folder. "Mrs. Rick, the report says you've shown sudden changes in financial behavior, cut off your family without reason, installed unnecessary security system, and refused medical or legal help from loved one. These are signs of possible confusion." Every word was carefully designed to make me look unstable. I could hear Lena's voice in that report. "Mrs. Schmidt," I said calmly, "before answering anything, I want to call my lawyer." She frowned. "This isn't an interrogation. If you have nothing to hide, why not just answer?" I stared at her. "I am calling my lawyer." 20 minutes later, Mr. Weber arrived. His face hardened when he saw her. "Mrs. Schmidt, unless you have a court order, questioning my client without representation is harassment. This so-called report came from the same family that tried to steal her finances." He laid a thick folder on the table. "Here is documentation of over $33,000 my client spent on them in 3 years' rent. Food, gifts, emergencies. She has supported them while they excluded her from their lives. She is not confused. She is exploited." Mrs. Schmidt read through the papers, her expression changing. Then she turned to me. Double quotes Mrs. Richter. Do you handle your own finances? Yes. My accounts, my bills, my taxes all in order. Do you live independently? Of course. I cook, clean, drive, and maintain my home. Do you take medication? Only vitamins and the occasional aspirin. No medical conditions. Mr. Weber added. She also recently underwent a cognitive evaluation. The results prove she is fully competent. After a long pause, Mrs. Schmidt closed her folder. Based on what I've seen, I find no evidence you are at risk. I will close this case. When she left, Mr. Weber looked at me. Renate, they're desperate. They will try again, probably with a lawsuit. But remember, you're not alone. We'll fight. For the first time, I believed him. When I thought things might calm down. Mr. Weber arrived at my house one morning with a grim look. Renate, he said, Max and Lena have filed a formal lawsuit. They are asking the court to declare you mentally incompetent and to appoint a guardian, most likely Max, to control your finances. The words hit me like a hammer. My own son was trying to steal my freedom through the law. What evidence could they possibly have? I asked in shock. They've brought 3 witnesses, Mr. Weber explained. Lena, of course, your neighbor, Mr. Davis, and your pharmacist, Mr. Green. They also submitted medical bills you supposedly ignored and claimed you refused a psychiatric evaluation, which they say proves decline. But that's all lies, I cried. I don't have unpaid bills, and I take no regular medication. I know, Mr. Weber said calmly, but they have manipulated others. We need to respond with facts. That afternoon, we went to see Mr. Green. He looked nervous when I asked about the statement he had signed. Mrs. Rick, I thought it was just an insurance form, he admitted. Lena came in and asked about your medication. I told her you only buy vitamins and aspirin, but she twisted my words. Then she handed me a paper. I didn't realize it would be used against you. Then you must write a correction, Mr. Weber insisted. Explain exactly what happened. Mr. Green nodded immediately. Of course. I'm sorry. I'll write it today. Double quotes next. We confronted Mr. Davis. He didn't apologize. That woman's been acting strange, he barked. Installing cameras, yelling at her family, having strangers over. Looks crazy to me. Strange, I said firmly. I installed cameras because my son and his wife broke into my home. I yelled because they brought a lawyer to pressure me. And those strangers are friends who care for me, unlike my own children. But Mr. Davis only shrugged. He had already chosen his side. Back home, Mr. Weber laid out the plan. We'll have Dr. Moore, a trusted psychiatrist, evaluate you officially. We'll collect statements from your friends, neighbors who know the truth, and professionals who've seen your clarity. We'll build a wall of evidence. I nodded slowly, fear turning into resolve. They want to prove I'm incompetent, I said quietly, but we'll show the world I'm stronger than ever. A few days later, I met Dr. Moore, a psychiatrist Mr. Weber trusted. She was a calm woman in her 50s. With kind but intelligent eyes. Mrs. Richter, she said gently, I'm going to ask you a series of questions and give you some simple tests. Take your time, answer honestly. There's no rush. For the next 2 hours, she tested me carefully. She asked about my past and present. She gave me logical problems, memory exercises, and math questions. She asked me to explain my finances, my income, my expenses, the bank transfers I had cancelled. She even asked about my emotions, about how I had been feeling since the conflict began. I answered every question clearly. When we finished, Dr. Moore smiled. Mrs. Richter, I want you to know something. Your results are excellent. Not only are you fully competent, but your cognitive skills are above average for your age. You have strong memory, clear judgment, and excellent reasoning. A wave of relief washed over me. Finally, professional proof of what I already knew. I was not confused. I was not weak. I was not broken. Doctor, I asked quietly. Then why are they doing this to me? She sighed. Sadly, this is common. It's called elder financial exploitation. When family members lose access to money, they sometimes try to label a parent incompetent so they can take control legally. It has nothing to do with your health. It has everything to do with greed. Her words hurt, but they also gave me strength. When I walked out of her office, I held my head higher. I was armed with truth. For years I had doubted myself, thinking maybe I was too soft, too weak, too emotional. But now I had proof from a professional. I was not the problem. The problem was the 2 adults who called themselves family, but treated me like a wallet. That evening, Eleanor invited me to her house. When I arrived, several women were already gathered in her living room. Renate, Eleanor, said warmly. I want you to meet my friends, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda. We're part of the local garden club. We've all been through situations like yours. As we sat together, I told them my whole story: the wedding, the $33,400, the lawyer who tried to trick me, the wellness check, and now the lawsuit. By the time I finished, their faces were filled with anger and sympathy. This is outrageous, Maria said firmly. Renate, don't worry. We'll testify for you. We've seen how clear and strong you are these past weeks. Anyone can see you're perfectly capable, better than capable, added Carmen. You're sharper than many women half your age. Alfreda, the oldest of the group, took my hands in hers. She was 80 years old, and her eyes carried wisdom. My dear, she said softly, what your children are doing is not new. For generations, greedy children have tried to declare their parents incompetent to take their money. But you have something many others didn't: proof, documents, and friends who will stand with you. Her words felt like a warm blanket around my heart. You know what hurts me the most? I admitted quietly. Not the money I gave them. It's realizing that the love I thought I had was never real. Alfreda squeezed my hand gently. True love cannot be bought, Renate. If you had to pay for it, it was never love. Her words pierced me, but in a healing way, like medicine that stings before it soothes. That night, I returned home with a new strength. For the first time, I felt I had an army behind me, not of lawyers and judges, but of women who had walked the same path. I was no longer alone. And this time, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see a tired old woman fighting for survival. I saw a warrior preparing for battle. The day of the trial finally arrived. I woke up early, put on my best black suit, and looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time, I wasn't dressing like a mother trying to please her son. I was dressing like a woman ready to defend her dignity. At the courthouse, Max avoided my eyes. He wore a new suit, probably bought with borrowed money. Lena, dressed in black as if for a funeral, looked at me with pure coldness. Their lawyer, confident and polished, began the case. Your Honor, he said solemnly, Mrs. Richter has shown clear mental decline. She suddenly cut off her family, installed unnecessary security systems, and isolated herself under the influence of outsiders. We only want to protect her. His words painted me as paranoid and confused. Then Lena took the stand. Her tears looked real, but her words were lies. Renate has always been like a second mother to me, she sobbed, but lately she's been hostile and confused. We just want to help her get the care she needs. Mr. Weber, my lawyer, cross-examined her. Mrs. Schuster, when was the last time you called my client without asking for money? Lena froze. Well, we always talked about many things. Can you name a date? She couldn't. He leaned closer. Is it true you told my client she wasn't special enough to attend your wedding? Her face turned red. Those words were taken out of context. What context makes that acceptable? He asked. She had no answer. Then Max testified. My mother has become irrational, he said. She's being manipulated. We're only trying to protect her. Mr. Weber was ready. Mr. Richter, is it true your mother gave you more than $33,000 over the past 3 years? Max shifted uncomfortably. She's always been generous. How many times have you visited her without asking for money? Silence. Is it true you brought a lawyer into her home to pressure her into signing a power of attorney? Max looked down. We were worried their so-called witnesses weren't much better. Mr. Davis admitted his claims were based only on what he saw from across the street. Dr. Lehman's testimony collapsed when we presented Dr. Moore's full evaluation of my excellent mental health. Finally, it was my turn. I walked to the stand with steady steps, my hands not trembling for once. I decided to stop giving them money, I said firmly, not because I am confused, but because I finally understood that what I was giving them was not love, was business. My money was welcome, but I as a person was not. I don't regret my choice. I only regret waiting so long. Their lawyer tried to shake me with fast questions, but I answered each one clearly. I was not the confused old woman they described. I was a mother who had woken up from a long nightmare. When the judge called for recess, I knew deep inside the truth was finally stronger than their lies. After hours of testimony, the courtroom grew silent. Judge Miller left to deliberate, and every minute felt like an hour. I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap, refusing to look at Max or Lena. 2 long hours later, the judge returned. His face was serious, but his voice was steady. After reviewing all the evidence, he began, This court finds that Mrs. Renate Richter is fully competent to manage her own affairs. Professional psychiatric evaluations confirm her mental clarity. Her financial decisions are rational and within her legal rights. My heart pounded. He continued, "The evidence suggests that this lawsuit is motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern. Therefore, the request for guardianship is denied in full." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then relief washed over me. I had won not just the case, but my freedom, my dignity, my right to live on my own terms. I looked at Max. For a split second, I thought I saw regret in his eyes. But Lena pulled his arm, her face filled with cold hatred. They left the courtroom without another word to me. Mr. Weber squeezed my hand. "Congratulations, Renate. Justice is on your side." That night, Eleanor and my new friends came to my house with food and flowers. We sat together, laughing, sharing stories, toasting not just my legal victory, but my rebirth. Renate, Elfriede said with a smile, "Today you didn't just win in court, you won back your life." She was right. For the first time in years, I was free, truly free. No more fear, no more manipulation, no more paying for love that was never real. The silence in my home that night was not loneliness, it was peace. 3 months after the trial, I made a bold decision. I sold my house, the same house where I had cried, sacrificed, and been humiliated. I bought a smaller apartment in the city center, close to shops, parks, and people. It wasn't just a move, it was a fresh start. With the money I had left, I split it into 2 parts. Half I donated to organizations that protect elderly people from family financial abuse. I wanted others like me to know they weren't alone. The other half I saved for myself, for the life I had postponed for too long, and for the first time, I truly lived. I traveled through Europe, walking along the Seine in Paris, standing in front of Rome's Colosseum, and enjoying the art museums I had only seen in books. I took painting classes again, holding a brush in my hand after decades of silence. I joined a volunteer group, helping people who needed kindness, not money, but kindness. Every day, I rediscovered myself. As for Max and Lena, I never heard from them again. Some neighbors told me they had moved into a smaller apartment. Lena had even taken a job for the first time in years. Perhaps life was finally teaching them the lessons my money never could. Sometimes, at night, I stand on the balcony of my new apartment and look up at the stars. I think of the woman I was a year ago, afraid, manipulated, desperate to buy love. That woman no longer exists. In her place stands someone stronger, someone free, someone who finally understands that love is never bought and freedom is never too expensive. My name is Renate. I am 72 years old, and for the first time in my life, I truly belong to myself.